Hello, this is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So today we're doing a pick a card reading and we are going to be looking at your Akashic Records. Now Akashic Records are very specific and it's something that I would never normally do with a collective reading, but I've been mucking around in the Akashic Records a lot lately and it's my favorite kind of reading to do in the world. I don't offer it because it takes hours for me. And so it's only something that it's on my website, like very randomly when I'm feeling like it, and it pops up and down. But for a collective reading, there's a way in which I think that we can do this, and I think that we can probably be pretty accurate because people, spiritual concepts are really grandiose, mainly because they're taboo. But like once you're like in a spiritual practice regularly, like there's this way in which like a lot of people are dealing with the same stuff. And so when we look at, the question that we're asking the Akashic Records, what is unfinished from a past life that you are carrying with you, and how do you process it and purge it? And some, in the same way that you'll go to therapy and a lot of people are dealing with the same exact relationship issue, when we're in the Akashic Records and we're looking at patterns and themes, you'll see that a lot of people are carrying similar types of things from one life to the next. And the point in the world where we are, like our, development and time, this is a great time to sort of be doing this like last purge. And a lot of the stuff has been with you your whole life. It's like a heavy thing that you haven't quite understood, but it has a theme. And so that's bringing me to like this next part of the pick a card where I'm going to have you pick a pile, but you're not going to pick it just like intuition alone. This is a little bit of a process, and I think it's a good idea to bring you very much in the reading with your own intention. So what I want you to do is in a minute, you're going to pause this. And when you pause it, you are going to take some deep breaths. You're going to get in touch with whatever that guidance system that you feel most comfortable and is like your strongest guide or your strongest way of being guided. And in prayer, interactive conversation with that energy, you're going to ask them to help you see an area of your life where there has been like a pattern or something that's always been with you or something that you're carrying that's ready for release and transformation into a truth that you can carry instead of like a wound. So go ahead and pause the video and have that moment and come back and I'll show you what we're going to do with that information. Okay, we're back. So now that you've sort of identified something that has always kind of haunted you, I'm going to turn these cards around. I shuffled before I started because I was like trancing out. I didn't want to chew gum at the same time as walking, and I usually shuffle in front of you, but this was just this is a different process. Akashic Record stuff for me, I have to put myself in there. So with miracle, yes, and let spirit be your guide. Universal love, what lights you up, and be here now, and delight, deep replenishment, and believe in yourself. So for those of you that sort of were in your little meditation process and you were asking about life purpose, and am I really, like, is my life purpose really gonna be something, like you can feel it being really important, really, really big, and then you look at your small life and you're like, I have no idea, like what's going on here, like who am I really, am I fooling myself? And there's this imposter syndrome when it comes to your spiritual abilities that you've carried around all of your life, including that knowing of like that you're meant to be something quite like that there's something really powerful within you that's meant for the world. You have that deep knowing, but the imposter syndrome follows it around. And so like this is this pile here. So related to life purpose, related to who you really are, and like having constantly like some sort of imposter syndrome around your giftedness, which you have giftedness, it's not an imposter, but that's the feeling. That's the feeling that you're carrying from another life that we need to purge for you so that you can really step into like, yes, you are like gifted in this way and you are supposed to have this purpose. It's not sort of some illusion. There's a disappointment. Spirit's going to guide you. This is your pile number 1. So we're going to start that in a minute. I will put timestamps below. Pile number 2, universal love, starseed, and be here now. You have always felt so profoundly homesick. And then in the last 2 months in particular, that homesickness has like been at a fever pitch where you've been walking around grieving heavily or grappling with like lots of what you might feel like is really intense morbid depression, or like there's like a heaviness that you've always sort of had as like an undercurrent, but lately it's been really loud, sort of like when you walk towards a waterfall and it gets louder and louder and louder. This has been this feeling of hopeless. It's been kind of hopeless. Homesickness, this feeling of homesickness like is loud for you right now. So this is pile number 2, if that's the theme that you're dealing with. Pile number 3, what we have here is you've forgotten what it feels like to feel joy. You haven't had like a really deep belly laugh in a very, very long time. It's like your joy has been stolen, and there's a way in which you have been kind of, as much as you possibly can, like hiding from life, because I'm being shown that like wounded animal, and when an animal is wounded and it knows it's wounded, it hides because it doesn't want to be vulnerable. And so there's this feeling of feeling like this, like, and this is again something that we've always had this like very meek, timid relationship to like what it is to step into your power and be who you are, even though you show up pretty fully. Like there's an interesting dichotomy between like you having like very good social skills and having a really nice, like you're a delight to other people, but you're hiding like this feeling of like, I don't remember what it is to belly laugh, and my joy has been stolen and I don't know how to ever get it back. And there's almost like a giving up that has it's been a pattern to give up, because that feeling of giving up has always been kind of an undercurrent anyway. So pile number 1, and some of you are sitting there being like, that's everything, I'm all of these piles. That's okay, come along, this is fine. You know, technomancy, the magic is that there's no rules. It's just, if this hits all the way home, that's magical. If it gets everything in terms of like being correct, that's the magic of it. So magic doesn't make sense, right? So to try and make sense, if everything, then everything, right? So let's start with pile number 1. Let me not mix these up. Let's start with pile number 1, and we're looking at, yes, you are somebody of great spiritual merit and great spiritual capabilities. And the imposter syndrome that you've been carrying around with you doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because kind of what Spirit's showing me, we're going to go into this in a second, is that you've had like supernatural experiences from the very beginning that have no explanation whatsoever, shouldn't be real. And there's this almost like this cognitive dissonance for you where you have had to, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but you have had to sort of like separate the really weird and unique and otherworldly experiences that can't be explained and would only fall into the categories of like someone else's view on what a mental illness might be or an acid trip might be. But for you, it's not anything like that. So you've no one to talk to about the reality that you know is real, which is in direct opposition to the reality that everybody else accepts. So you just kind of like separate that off as like, nobody knows, I can't tell anybody about it, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, it just scares me, right? And if it doesn't scare you, it's great until it scares you, and you know, there's this weird relationship with it. So let's look at why you feel like your giftedness and your life path, which is highly spiritual, like incredibly spiritually talented, and does put you in a position where, yes, you're carrying a gift of great value that the world needs, and yes, it's as big of a deal as you think it is, and no, that's not imposter syndrome. I want to see why your gifts are so hard for you to access fully, and why you feel like you shouldn't be this. Why you feel like it like, if no one else can see it, then I must be crazy. No. Let's take a look and see what that is. Yeah, like I'm seeing like when you were younger, you know, you had some really insane spiritual experiences that would have fallen into the realm of like, no one will believe me. And so they just never even like told anyone, but you know that that was real. And now it's just a question of, why do I have this? What am I supposed to use it for? And why does it fuel this fear? There's shame, there's like hiding, there's not believing yourself, not having trust in yourself. So this has resulted in you not even being able to trust yourself. So when we think about what has happened in a past life that makes you so, wow, afraid of your giftedness, and this knowing that you're meant to be using it in a way that is really, really powerful. With the authority figure on the bottom of the deck, I know already why you're so afraid. I think there was something like 60 million, or there was some number that somebody said of how many witches were burned between like the 15th and 16th century when Christianity rolled up with its love for the world. And I say that sarcastically. That's not real. That's not real religion. It's real religion. It's not real God. But anyway, so spouse, baby, Atlantis farm, Greco-Roman, let spirit be your guide. Yeah, you have an incredible connection to the spirit realm, and it was absolutely forbidden. And I'm being shown Hypatia. How do I say her name? Hypatia. So your story is very similar to hers in some way. You have, if not her, I mean, that's interesting actually. Hypatia? Yeah, someone has to look up the name. I might be saying it wrong. But with you, your wisdom, your power, your knowledge, your magic, your capacity for magic, your connectedness to the divine, and the way in which you experience things that should be impossible, that is for a purpose and a reason. You have, each one of you actually has something very specific that they're supposed to do with this. But the story, I keep on getting I cannot say that name. It's Greek. I think it's Hypatia. She was a renowned scholar, and she was a philosopher, and I think a mathematician, and she taught in ancient Greece. And the Christians rolled through. They decided that women shouldn't be teaching, and so they took her outside, skinned her alive, and murdered her brutally in front of everyone. And so the reason that I'm being shown that is this had a great impact on you. Either you're her, or you've had that as a past life, or you witnessed this in a past life, or you had a similar experience in a past life. Humiliation and torture in a mind-boggling way, where you're like, it's very similar, like, you know, we're in America, and we look at you know, the history of genocide, basically, and we think about genocide, you know, in different cultures, and we always think like, how could that ever happen? And I can assure you that the people who are, you know, being murdered at any given moment in that situation are standing around going like, how the heck did this happen? We were negotiating, we were having a conversation, like, when did people become monsters? Like, how is this even real? So you had such a traumatic moment that was so fully traumatic for you, with this Greco-Roman, you know, as being part of it, that you feel like you have to, so there's like two layers here. There's, I have to hide my gifts because it's not safe to have them. And you've experienced, like, when you're open about your giftedness, like, you've looked around and seen where people were out for blood. There's something there about what you bring into the world that the infrastructure that currently is the spiritual infrastructure, like, really doesn't like you anymore than it did when it was out to, you know, subjugate women and enslave people and you know, take people's gods and, you know, burn down entire libraries. I'm seeing the Library of Alexandria burnt down. So there's a phobia related to just even experiencing this part of yourself. That great knowing is this great knowing of who you once were. And who you once were with Atlantis was a high priestess. And from this it was your job to minister to people. It was your job to lead people. And this was so much, this life was so, this is your pinnacle. You know what I mean? This is like when you were so fully developed and in your potential and operating with such a close and beautiful relationship with the divine, that where you are now, the divine is at enough of a distance. You're very connected, but the divine is at enough of a distance where you see, like, and I heard the sins of the world. You see just how horrible the world is, and it's devastating to you because in this position as a high priestess connected to your deity, your God, you know, that was such a strong bond and such a strong love that what you have experienced in the way of a connection to God, like with the flimsy framework that you've been born into, there's a wound, a God wound, a disappointed, like a devastation like in relationship to your, there's this devastated heartbreak in your relationship to spirituality to an extent because as a child or as a young person, you were so eager and ready to connect with this God because as a high priestess, you were literally a direct line to the divine. And it was like, you know, like a home, like almost like a homecoming, like the love of my life is the divine. And then the divine was like this horrible, not God situation that really crushed you. And so, you know, not only did you feel like because of this Greco-Roman experience, this life, that it's unsafe to be gifted, that it's unsafe to be a high priestess, and that it's unsafe to have this relationship to the world. You know, there's also this other aspect here where, you know, when you are a high priestess in Atlantis, you loved your deity and your deity loved you, and it was this incredibly rich relationship, and there's a heartbreak and a disappointment around that that is very profound. You have a relationship to this is interesting. Let me come back to that in a second, because with spouse and baby here and authority figures, I already know that the reason that you feel like you have imposter syndrome is because one of the things that happened to you. Now, so there was the Atlantis life where this is your favorite life actually, so connected to the divine, you know, so fully magical, so using all of your gifts, and you still have these gifts. You're still capable of this stuff. It pops out here and there. That's like your otherworldly experiences that no one else could possibly understand. It used to be that people would because they had similar ones, and they do, but just, you know, it's really taboo. You had a life where you were willing to give up your magic for romantic love. This was like moving into, it's sort of like you had this beautiful position, and it wasn't the Atlantis, it was something else. You had this incredible magic, this incredible ability, this inheritance. I'm seeing that in your family line. You were like, you know, one of these like passed down spiritual gifts. And so you said, I'm not going to be a high priestess. I'm not going to take my giftedness. I'm not going to use it as it was intended. I'm going to enter this culture, whereas a prerequisite for entering that culture to have this love, I have to disavow my belief system. And your child was born with this magic. And so there's this really strange, like knotted thing around this idea that you, like, it was like you sold your birthright, and then you had to sort of like live with what it meant to not be able to fully pass that information on how to use this giftedness. Like there's this real thing around like imposter syndrome being like, I have to hide it. We have to hide it. No one can see it. It's a bad thing. It's not a good thing. Like it's not real. It's something else. Like this like convoluted thing in which like teaching against yourself almost happened. And there's still such a level of guilt around that, because when you did die before moving into the next life, you had a real reckoning, and a sickness here, and I'm feeling it so deeply, related to like having given away your birthright, and then it would cost your family and the whole line. And so you do feel like you don't have a right to these gifts, like because you did something to like not deserve them. And so that's what you're carrying with you. Now I'm going to move, and authority figures, again, that's this. Now I just want to, what is this? I don't really know what that is. So I want to just take a little closer look. There's something about a way in which you came to view yourself in life. Let me just get some information on that. Your destiny, where you're going, your career with the farm. Your ideas, short-term thinking, and trips. So the 3rd house and the 10th house. This is just a life that you're stuck with. So we're going to take that out, because, you know, all of this contributes to feeling like you're not entitled to your giftedness, or you've somehow betrayed it, or, you know, that it's evil or wrong. Like, your giftedness is not evil and wrong. Your happiest life is as a high priestess, fully embodying these gifts. And like, no, you aren't Your reality testing is fine. You were born into a world that for hundreds of years has burned people like you. And you've seen it, and you've been subject to that yourself, if not very personally. Look up Hypatia. If not very personally, then you witnessed it, and I think it was like witnessed and personal. So let's take a look at this farm and your destiny here with the 10th house, because this has been something that you have absolutely, take that too, carried into this life as something that is like, you're carrying it and you have to process it and purge it. So it comes from what you're carrying in this life, very specifically comes from this farm. And your destiny, where you're going, your career, your ideas, short-term thinking and trips, who and what is around you. This is going to be a long reading. I'm going to let it be a long reading. I can already see that because this just came in. I was able to see like a whole story. That was really fast. All right, so let's get some cards and see if I can confirm this all. But overall, there's a past life that you haven't been able to let go of. And the reason that you know that you haven't been able to let go of it is because it's always with you. You've been studying this your whole life. You've been freaked out about like, why am I so obsessed with like this period of time and these historical characters? Why can't I let this go? What the hell is going on? That's because at that time, your destiny and what you were doing in terms of this 10th house, like, you know, your place in the world, you suffered an immense loss here, because I'm seeing you as being somebody who's super intuitive, someone who had a mission and knew what they were capable of. They also knew that they had a limited time frame. I'm seeing this person as somebody who's super smart, really, really intelligent, somewhat status conscious, and wanting to like bring their family up. They felt a responsibility to their family to sort of like leave the farm and bring the family up several notches by way of like what they knew they had in the way of assets in their you knew how smart you were. And so something about this life, we're going to be looking at this because your life was cut short. And that's sort of where you have this like unfinished, and I think it might have been even like the last life before jumping into this one. So let's take a look and see what that life wants to tell you, because you're holding on to this, and we're going to talk a little bit about that life and where it's showing up in this one, and then we're going to talk about purging it and turning it into a piece of wisdom that you can take with you and be free of the weight, because it is weight. So the first thing I want to tell you is that there's a part of your soul, and I'm hearing murder very clearly. Yeah, and I think as I said out, a light went out, one of the candles. It's okay, because that was like the extra candle anyway. You're really mad. There's a part of you. Okay, so we're going to look at this. We're going to look at what it is. You were murdered, and your soul like very quickly moved on. But there's a part of you, there's something called there's like soul fragment, where you can kind of get stuck in a loop or get stuck here somehow. So whatever part of you like stuck your foot in and said like, oh, I'm not dead. I'm waiting for my friends who I love more than anything. We've been in this battle together. And I'm also going to work really, really hard to avenge myself. I'm going to spend the rest of my life working against the government to bring truths to light because I can't stand it. And I need to defeat your soul. Part of your soul is kind of trapped in a very obsessive need to defeat the government that murdered it. And there's this echo. And so this is a little bit difficult. That's why as soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, we're going to spend some time, because you're haunted by yourself. You are haunted by this aspect of yourself that recognizes your soul as its own. And it's not, it's a fragment that isn't evolved, and it really messes with the flow of things. And this is incredibly unique. You know, I'm in people's Akashic Records all the time. So I'm going to be surprised to hear what you want to say about this when you know, leave a comment if you're like, oh my God, every aspect of this is making me want to like pass out. So So since you're so powerful, spiritually, you're incredible. Your magic isn't amazing. You're ancient. You have this like miracle. You're like, when we say that you have spiritual gifts, I mean, like, let's just walk out onto the water and if somebody is sick, we're gonna just heal them. Is there someone like I'm being shown someone who can like stand over a dead body and like life it back. So you take that level of power and you submerge it into like, you know, the 1800s, I'm feeling very much kind of, and, you know, and take that particular soul, put them in a male body, I'm seeing it as a male body, and tell them that they're not allowed to have their psychic abilities, they're evil, wrong, and horrible, you know, tell them that like all of their impulses are, you know, like this energy was born in a male body, wasn't feeling particularly like comfortable in it. So there's a lot there about like, you know, being very masculine, even though like feeling like we very sensitive soul, actually, much more in a divine feminine energy. So there's this like clash there. You take that beautiful soul with so much power and you murder them in cold blood and there's nothing settled about it. That is this haunting that's around you. You have an attachment that's a part of you. That's very, very interesting. And so like, you know, what do you need to purge? A part of you that needs to integrate, basically. And that's not an easy thing, because how are you going to convince this energy to integrate? Some of your supernatural experiences, have you been being like, why is there this one energy that I can't seem to totally defeat? Because it's you. Your shadow work has been very, very interesting, because this thing has a consciousness and an intelligence of its own. It's clinging to life. It's a part of your ego. Like it was your ego in that life. How do you even deal with this, Spirit? This is really interesting. So let's get back to what we're dealing with. So the part of you that is left behind, the part of you that is haunting you, and the part of you that is hungry for your soul. It sounds like a horror movie, but I actually see something it being unable to hurt you. You're unable, it's unable to actually hurt you. It's unable to actually do any damage. The most it can do is try to control you, and it's made a full-time job of that, but you can't be controlled. And it can never control you. So like, so this is allowed to exist in this way because it's kind of like, it's not really your opposition, it's you. So we'll see what it means for you to work with this. Because taking action on this for you is almost in the same way that this thing can't hurt you. Thing. I'm calling it a thing. It is this male, it's a divine masculine, it's male version of you that came into the world with all of your magic and then suppressed as the day is long, suppressed all of that energy into like one goal and one belief system and one agenda. And it was reliant on the world being a fair place, and the world turned out to not be a fair place. And then this part of your soul that is angry enough to stick around is basically at war in a way that they can't win that war. It has to let go of that war. It has to release that war. So part of what you can do to release this in this lifetime is take a look at all the areas of your life that have been injustices that you can't look away from and that have become your narrow focus. Every injustice that has eaten your life because it's become your narrow focus, that's this influence. And so part of what it is for you to release and let go, or basically, you know, not carry this with you, for it to be processed and purged. This is like a self-exorcism. It's really strange. But for you to do that, you have to start to make peace with some of this injustice that is around you and has been a part of your life since the very beginning. If your mantra is life is not fair, make it fair. I don't care how I stake my life on it. That's that influence. To take action on this is to take your focus off the life that is not fair, that is always seeking to devour. And you know, this is like angry at God. And this energy is like, there is no God. I can hear it, you know? And that's part of you that feels like your gifts can't possibly exist in the same world as this conviction that God is a horrible, terrible, no good thing. It makes everything scary. You know, when spirituality, which is supposed to be a haven, is a place that's wrought with this tension of this energy that can't let go of this gridlock around the world failed me, God failed me, goodness failed me, everything failed me, I'm going to make it work, like, it's literally like a broken record. This energy can't get off of this. Because it's stuck in a time loop. As the High Priestess here, it seems like you have been doing your work because you've come into contact with this energy through your spiritual work. Again, it's part of you that didn't reincarnate. And how you were able to split like this, I have no idea. And I think it's because I'm seeing the murder. It happened really, really quickly. So it's almost like there was like a ricochet where the soul was just like, boop. And then what was left was like this agony that transformed very quickly from screaming and crying in the middle of a forest next to a dead horse it transformed very quickly into like an agenda. Like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it fair. And it actually just kept on getting worse and worse and worse. And there was a group of friends around you. They're still around you. There's a whole bunch of you. Oh my God. So you and this group of people who are fighting for this justice are still fighting for justice. But there's no winning that way. So I'm like screaming because I can see this whole scenario. You came up against this. You figured it out. You walked into this and you saw this, and you now have this entity or this energy, what you consider kind of an attachment, that you have defeated, by the way, because there's no real war. You came into contact with it and you said, hey, remember that remember what love feels like? Remember what it feels like to be warm and cozy. Do you remember what it was like when we laughed? Do you remember what it was like to be around your siblings? Do you remember how much you love nature? This energy is still like, you know, in its little mind. Beep, 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 beep. No. Like, it's got this really intense, I know I'm talking about you and I'm not trying to be mean, but again, this part of you that is so like, I will rather spend eternity fighting for justice, and it's not, everyone's dead, you know what I mean? Like, everything is gone, and the injustice that persists is structural, but this is where this energy is carrying on. And you came in and you say, hey, how you've defeated them, and this is still a process that's ongoing, is you've introduced love. And you said, remember me, I'm your soul. And it doesn't want to let go. And you're like, you don't have to. And so like, there's this forgiveness aspect here that is working itself out, and that spirit is allowing to work itself out as almost like, it's almost like you're dealing with like a spiritual twin flame journey that is kind of really difficult. But nonetheless, you know, we have victory with you. This is you being the High Priestess that you are, and knowing exactly how it is that this happened and what it means to work with this. Even if it's completely unconscious, you have the playbook from when you were in Atlantis. You know exactly what you're doing. And so this is a little bit like, I'm hearing the taming of the shrew, but kind of reverse. And so part of your life, you know, in terms of like the work that you've been doing, your spiritual stuff has been really wrought with this very complicating aspect, which I love the Akashic Records, and I would do Akashic Record readings all day long, except that it would take all day long, every day. Like, until I can figure out how to narrow it, like even this reading is going to be like an hour for each person, and it'll take like 10 years to upload. I'm okay with that. It's going to be all right. But bottom line is, like, you know, what I'm seeing for you in terms of this situation is like, you might be like really comfortable in like a Scorpio energy. You might even like really identify with Hecate and necromancy. Because you are carrying, to a certain extent, you are midwifing, or not even midwife. It's like you're a mother. You're like mothering this energy and coaxing it back to life. This is a very dead energy, and you're bringing life to it and the remembrance of life to it. You're even reminding it, you are its soul. So there's this way in which you love this energy no matter how, like a child, you know, and it loves you, but there's hate too, and there's friction there too. This has been something where there's been a lot of spiritual interference in your life, because again, this split with this level of power has meant that like you're in charge of fixing this problem, because this other energy is actually a little insane. That's misery. Misery will do that. Being alienated from your source of love and life and God will do that to you. You know, being in a loop of nothing else matters but finally winning will do that to you. And so this energy has been in opposition to your spiritual growth and your spiritual actualization. From the beginning, it's very focused on justice, and it's wanting to take over and push you in that direction to the exclusion of everything else. That's been this life wrestling for you, you know, looking at injustice and not being able to just, you know, even budge an inch. So when we see this here and we're looking at this, this is an interesting way in which your higher self, which will not leave any part of you behind. will not forsake any part of you. Like, this higher self loves all aspects of you. And so you came back in some ways in this life to like rectify the situation. And it meant like signing up for a spiritual journey where everything was going to be in opposition to your spiritual growth, including like a very specific energy that didn't even know what it was doing. But that opposition has gotten you closer to this knowing of who you are and what you're capable of than anything else could have. And you are being tasked with a miracle in this lifetime, and you knew that you were being tasked with a miracle in this lifetime. And what a miracle ends up being is like, I don't know how to do this. I can't figure out how this would be impossible. You're stuck on the island. The miracle is, I have to walk on that water, and I'm going to need the power of something greater than me in order to like make it possible for me to even do that. And I need to be in co-creation with spirit, like in a way that, like, again, like miracles are no joke. We're not talking about magic tricks or like speculative little like, look, you know, we are talking about what you're actually capable of, and nothing has gotten you closer to what you're actually capable of and actually who you are than the process of this friction spiritually in your life. And so when we look at what it means for you to purge it and process it, you know, we are dealing with the heavy weight of an energy that is very much with you, that you are sort of learning how to sort of, this is you operating with this energy. This energy is like justice, you know, injustice, like life isn't fair, everything's horrible, you're wrong, there's no good, you know what I mean? It's like all this energy around you against your spiritual growth and this shadows. And then there's you being like, I am finding the truth of who I am and what I'm capable of amidst all of this noise. And the only way you were going to get this kind of spiritual focus was if the opposition was as much you as it has been. And so, you know, it's not an easy task for you to process and purge it, because it's not about processing and purging. We're going to pull some cards on what you're supposed to do here. You're dealing with, like, this is like having a child that you love more than anything that is like just really difficult and won't get in the car and go to school no matter what you do. And you're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to deal with this. So that's kind of what we're dealing with in terms of like, it's not so much purge as it is, this has been the work that you have doing here with the High Priestess and the Two of Wands, Two of Coins energy right here. The work that you've really been doing. It's even kind of a Two of Swords energy. This deck has no signifiers on the minor arcana, and I love it because the energy is like, they mix. They are really cool. This is you in the arena. And the way that you're fighting is by you showing up with your heart. And so you're encouraged to continue to show up with your heart, but not to the extent that you're taking abuse from this thing that it's very agenda at this point, and has been until kind of this moment. Its agenda has always been to sort of make its agenda your agenda relentlessly, you know? And so this is where injustice has played the most central role in your life. And, you know, even though we have imposter syndrome, like the injustice that you faced and the ugliness of the world and the godlessness of the world was in direct opposition to how gifted you were. And it's only by allowing this weird interaction to take place. And you volunteered for something that I would, like, I'm impressed with you. Because this is no easy journey. You're like, I'm going back for my brother, and I don't care if he kills me. I'm going to get him. I'm not going to leave him there. That's the energy that you're coming into this life with in terms of this extra energy. And the funny thing is, you know, soul fragmentation is really interesting. Sometimes we think of it as like a piece of our soul that is broken off, but so many souls are created in clusters. Like the way you think about like twin flames, so many souls are created in clusters. And this is like, you were created in a cluster. And so this is a part of your soul that like was always in its own incarnation. And this is, it's like hard to explain this, but it's as much you as it is your brother. I don't know how to get clearer than that. And so your energy coming back into this world is like, I'm going to rediscover my magic. It's going to be a miracle, but I'm not leaving without my brother. I'm not leaving him behind. It's a love for the self that is really, really profound. And I would even like suspect that you might be an ascended master. So, because to come back on a mission like this is like basically signing up for, an excruciating experience in some ways, where you're always fielding attacks and you're never understanding like why you're always fielding attacks. How is this even possible? Having to deal with nothing but injustice, because this energy is like, you know, from the very beginning, that's been its whole, it's a broken record. You're not leaving without this energy. Yeah, this is beautiful, actually. So there's this part of you that is just, you know, doing something very, that requires a miracle. And you're like, I'm the high priestess that knows how to make a miracle. So I'm here to do this. What has stopped you is the interference and the very deep feeling that you're wrong to have these gifts. These gifts are evil. You're not supposed to have these gifts. And if you have these gifts, people are going to hate you, or they're going to kill you, or they're going to call you crazy. And when you are experiencing the potency of your giftedness, feeling like an imposter because it just can't be, it's in opposition to the smallness that you need to hold to be feeling safe. There's a whole range here. So, you know, like when I say this is hard, I mean like this is really hard. And so when we see these cards, we have Anna, Grandmother, and Jesus, seeding the light, laying foundations, divine plan. You came in with a plan, and I'm seeing this grandmother, and this is really like you being like, I'm not going to leave without my son. I will go into the pit of hell, earth, and I will stay there, and I will try to coax this energy back into some level of integration. We're going to ask exactly what that is. But you're encouraged to not think of this as like an evil spirit that's like stalking you and ruining your life. It was a spirit that was influencing you heavily, but you still love it, right? And so I want you to sort of like, when we have play here, there's this need to like have fun. Don't be so serious about this. You know, like this is part of your journey, was not to like kill this thing or like banish it into like, you know, outer darkness or some craziness like that. You know, your love for this energy, which manifests in like this is like, okay, I can't really explain it. I really can't. I can't figure out a way to explain to you that it's your soul, but it's separate. And it has its own level of incarnations, like pre and post, like it's a timeless like thing. I can't, yeah, there's no way I can really get that. But the bottom line is you're meant to sort of look at this and not think of it as like high stakes, not life and death, not think of it as like my prayers aren't being answered and I'm not powerful enough, but to say like, listen, bro, you're like this energy is like driven insane. You've been driven insane. You've forgotten who you are. You think you're this mission, and that mission was never your mission. You're something very different. And and just like, you know, to sort of reintroduce the concept of love and help this energy remember who it is. It's going to sort of do its own thing at that point. You're here to do this, and you're like, your guides are like, you're safe, you're protected, everything's okay. You two love each other. This is just a whole pain in the neck process. You're here to do this. You've been training for this for lifetimes. You know, like, you're prepared, you have everything you need, and this isn't the whole story of your life. This isn't the primary focus. There's a lot more going on here in terms of like, but this is like one of the primary missions. And as you're in this psychic space and you're dealing with this energy, basically what you're doing is being like, you're loved, you're missed, you're needed, you're bigger than this, you're more than this. There are people that are waiting for you, you know, and where is that going? Because might as well look, you know, like how do you like help the spirit crossover is always kind of a weird thing. Not every spirit wants to do it, and you shouldn't push every spirit to do it, but it's almost like this idea of saying like, to this energy doesn't have to leave its post. It can stay with its friends. It can sort of like be its own person. It can have its own experience. Like there's no you coming into control and into a different outcome. What there is you coming in and knowing that the job has begun and ended and is done at, hi, I'm here. This is what love is. If you want to begin to reconnect with what that means for yourself, here's how you do it. And you have no control or influence over me anymore, or you have no control or influence over my life. I'm going to make my peace with injustice, and that basically absolves me of this pattern that has been like plaguing my life. And then that influence, it's by example, basically, like you being able to make your peace with forgiveness and injustice by example will allow this other person, this other aspect of you, to see how it's done and release themselves. And so, you know, it's almost like you've had to interface and deal with injustice for this main reason of, it's been hard. You're like amazing to do this. And you might feel like, I don't want to deal with this person or this energy, you know, like you're done. You are done. You've already done the work. You've already said, like, here's the deal. Like, this is what's going on. What's left is for them to see it or not see it, and that you have nothing to do with. Your choice right now in terms of purging it is to not be in this fight with this energy ever again for any reason. You're going to just simply work your way through, like, what it means to process injustice, forgive injustice, and manage, like, the godlessness of it all. And do it as somebody who is connected to the divine in a way that is incredible. You can't force them to see it. You know, this is basically what it is. You've done the work and you're finished. You're not going to be playing with this energy. You're not patty cake. You're not being its entertainment. You're not its other half. You're not, you know, like there's a lot here that you really need to understand about boundaries, because it's not going to help this energy to be given power to continue its tyrannical reign of itself. You know, you're coming in here with a whole host of, it's kind of like show and tell. You're going to live by example. You're going to release injustice. You're going to, like, you healing from your wounds is healing for this energy. You like finding and using the technology of forgiveness is useful for this energy. There's a lot of show and tell going on here. And so the way that you free yourself is to, first of all, understand that you're not going to take it so seriously, but you're also not going to be playing games with this energy who is so fixated on this reflection of itself as like the arbiter of justice and where it was unfair and this not being acceptable. And if there is no God, I'll do it. You're just coming over here and you're saying, here, if you want to remember who you are and to become something like that is healed and more than you could possibly imagine, I'm holding the cup. You just have to look up, but that's your job. And then you don't take it seriously. You don't give it energy. You don't focus on it. You make this choice to move on, knowing you've been training for this for lifetimes. You've done as much as you can. You've done everything that you can. And it is time to move on. And it's time for this spirit to move on. And so you're this guide, you know, and be a guide means don't be terrorized by this, because again, it has no power. Your vibration is rising and you are an oracle. And that's what you need to understand about this. You know, this whole thing is a season. It's a part of your life. It's been with you forever. But for you to process it and purge it is to know that you've done it already. Everything else is up to this energy. There's nothing more that you can do. And now you're stepping into this role of the oracle. And this is stepping into your gift. And this is the high priestess. This is flicking away that imposter syndrome that says, I'm supposed to keep it small or else somebody's going to kill me. Nope. There might be some good past life regression, like YouTube videos that you can do around the idea of releasing that belief that if you show your gifts, people will hate you or kill you, because there is a part of them epigenetically. There are people, and this is epigenetics, who are going to see this magic and their reaction to you is going to be that's scary, that's horrible, that's no good. Scary, horrible, no good actually means that thing that they burn people for, and we don't want anything to do with it. So you're gonna always have closeness issues with people in terms of being open about this stuff, which is okay because it's a litmus test. Only the people who can be close to this should be close to this. And anyone who is going to attack you to make you smaller so that you don't set off alarms in their past life inner consciousness around breaking rules of magic that again, scary, horrible, weird, yucky, all of that is very much in alignment with like, this is epigenetics. This is hundreds of thousands of years of like, if you do that, they're going to burn you. And I don't want to be connected to it. So that sounds really, really harsh, but like, this is like, you know, this was the last phase. You already did the work. Now the choice is to move into this position of oracle where you're really just working with your higher self, very primarily in reconnecting to that divine energy that like was you have all the training. And then it's just about reconnecting to that divine energy and like beginning to actually bring the miracle, bringing God into the world through you. So yeah, pile number one, that was long. I think we're almost at like an hour. That's all right. It's okay. I hope that that was helpful. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Yes, there's one more thing. We're pulling a summation card today after this reading, and let's go ahead and see what this is. So this summation card should kind of summarize what we just did here. Those of you that have had revelatory readings with me know all about the summation card. This is going to be like a mini sort of a version of that. So let's get this card. This isn't, summation is like a weird way of putting it, but this should kind of speak to the reading. So what Spirit wants to tell you very specifically about this, Sweeping Sister Willow, and in summation, I mean, it should be somehow on theme. Here, I'm going to read it. Here is healing that brings with it forgiveness and the release of old pain, as Sweeping Sister Willow gracefully sweeps any sadness and pain from your heart and soul. Your time for greater inner freedom is dawning, and the cleansing of sadness and healing of forgiveness create the pathway to that greater freedom now. You deserve this freedom, and you are swiftly becoming ready to claim it. And this speaks to both you and that aspect of you that is stuck on a record of unforgiveness for the entire country, you know, for like unforgiveness towards the government, unforgiveness towards governments, unforgiveness of unfairness. This is for you, and it's for them as well. It's because what we're seeing here for you is that you've done the job already. You're done with this part of the job. You're ready to move on, and you can be free of this. You have given, you just now live by example. You know, as you step into your freedom related to not being afraid of your giftedness, part of that is releasing the sadness of the world is not fair. And this shouldn't have happened to anybody. And that's about like every situation that you've come across. Healing of and forgiveness create the pathway for you and this other energy to greater freedom right now. So it's like the work you're doing now is this process. You deserve freedom. They deserve freedom. They deserve to be free from this. They've given every single aspect of power that they could possibly embody or have or even have lived through to that which they hate the most, and by way of being controlled by the need to defeat it. And so you're aware of that. And as you swiftly come into this awareness of who you are, you bring that healing in for yourself, and it's extending as something that this other energy is again, it's remembering itself through the experience of seeing the world with you through your eyes to a certain extent. And no, you're not possessed. There's just this really intense tension. I'm here to get my brother. I'm not leaving without him. I don't care if he's kicking and screaming. He can bite me. It's not going to hurt because he can't really hurt me, because he is a hologram and I am the soul. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again soon. Pile number one. This is your Akashic Records reading. This is really interesting, and I hope that you feel some release. You should have some catharsis from this, so I hope that that's what's going on. All right, pile number one. I'll see you again soon. Pile number two. Welcome to your reading. So pile number two, with this homesickness that is like really, really pronounced. This is definitely like, I'm not having fun at camp. Please pick me up. I don't want to be here. Because you be here now. What lights you up? And universal love. So, you know, you are a creature. Let's get these cards. Let's like, just before I could jump in, right? Like I know everything right now. Just kidding. Not everything, but there's some really beautiful themes that are coming up here in terms of like what it means for you to actually connect with your body. And connecting with your body might be very difficult. You may be pretty disconnected from your body, actually. The body doesn't feel that comfortable. And especially, you know, coming into this world and, oh, look at that. You're really, oh, I like this. So let me just push these over. So the body's kind of an issue for you. Getting into your body is a big deal. And not only is it kind of hard for you to be in a body, just generally, because it is, there's also this aspect of like you have had some trauma to the current vessel that you're in, and there's just a feeling of like not really liking the body. And that's interesting because you are beautiful. Love life. And there's this, yeah, let's look at all of this in just 1 second. I'm gonna get spouse. Okay, I'm gonna get your past lives, and then I'm gonna look at the astrology around those past lives. Let's see. So you're homesick, and so the way that this kind of shows up for you is it's such a deep homesickness. You've always had it. You've always had this feeling of wanting to go home. That's why I was like, you know, like that feeling of like wanting to call your parents and be like, I don't know why I'm at camp. This is horrendous. Like, get me out of here. Like, there's really like this, and I don't know what I signed, but we're finished. Like, there's such a pronounced homesickness here. And you have had many lives, but the way that this is showing up in your life right now is like wanting what is really about universal love and universal homesickness. It's sort of like the way that it's coming through for you is around this idea of feeling like this homesickness can be solved by a person, and always sort of looking for like that person, like knowing that there's a hunger that needs to be satisfied, and thinking that like romantic love is home. It's really universal love. And so we have just like a little hiccup in terms of like, what does it mean for you to not carry this and to process and purge it, is to see it for what it is. You are from another place. You are very homesick. This is not your density of choice. And I'm going to look at why you're here, and what it means for you to accept that you're here and accept even your body, because there's this contentiousness with the body, which is interesting. So let's take a look at this. Let me see, are we in the frame? Is it really dark? Let's see. Get some more light on this. Does that work? Yeah. Bring that in a little bit more. It's not attractive, but it's a little bit brighter. Okay. So, let's see if we can get more light if I move it over. So this has been a very dark experience in terms of feeling like the body is weird and foreign, having bad experiences with it, and just wanting to go home. And thinking that home might be a person, and feeling like you've missed your person, or you're waiting for your person, and having it be like a little, like where romance is like super high stakes in a way that it doesn't need to be, but it is. So we're going to undo that. We're going to work with that today. So let me just take a look at the astrology with these past lives, because you came here, yeah, seeking. All right. So I'm not going to say that most of your lives were spent. Yes, I am. What I'm trying to say is most of your lives were spent not on Earth, but the lives that you had that were on Earth, some of them were as animals and trees, like this tree and animal thing. Bottom of the deck, we have the second house. So you're basically like waiting to get the hell out of here. you're just like, I want to do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going home. I want to go home. I signed up for this. I didn't know that it was going to be like the most uncomfortable. It's like, I keep on seeing like the worst camp is what Spirit keeps on showing me, is you like standing there with like a cup, actually kind of funny, like standing there with a cup of like orange drink and like an Oreo cookie that's not an Oreo cookie. It's like a Hydrox and an orange tree. And you just like standing there being like, this is disgusting. I'm not eating this. These things don't go together. I don't know who decided that this was like a good snack combination, but these are opposite sweetnesses, and like I need to go home. And like just basically having that experience of life over and over and over and over and over again. And so one of the things that we're going to do in terms of letting you process and not carry this with you is just accept that the environment that you are in isn't suited to your tastes, and that it's not forever. And to actually spend some time really exploring what lights you up, and in that, and in connecting with these past lives, you know, a life where you very much didn't come from this planet. You know, this is connecting with your star soul family is something that you can do and actively begin to sort of like feel. You may probably, you know, your guides are showing me that you probably have been feeling like you have like an orphan kind of a feeling, really, with this homesickness and this orphan feeling, like where you just don't feel like you have family, and the family that you have, you don't feel like they're your family. You have a very strong sense of what family is, and so you're kind of aware of who's not your family, and you weren't born into your soul family. Your soul family is dispersed all over the galaxy to a certain extent. I'm seeing you as being kind of from quite I'm seeing a lineage. It's kind of a very cool lineage. but that would take hours to like look at that. But anyway, so what we're seeing here is this way in which you miss your family. And so your family is one of the things to do to process and purge is to begin to reconnect with your soul family. I'm hearing Heradian. That's not for everybody. That's just like really coming. It was like a shout from the back of the room. So it's just like one person needs to look at that. Whoever just had this moment of like, oh, that's you. You've been mystical creatures before, so you mostly prefer being a spirit and a type of spirit too. You're not really like the human body. Like no, you want wings and Pegasus. Like when you think of what is beautiful, it's a like this white unicorn with wings. Like when you like look, like this is like your soul looking in the mirror and being like, no, that's no. I need my wings and my like I need my wingspan. Like I'm not supposed to look like this. Like I don't feel beautiful. And it's not even just like beauty standards. It's the mystical, magical creatures that you have been in past lives. Your sense of beauty is not humans. And it doesn't mean that you're attracted to like, it's not like weird. It's kind of, you're attracted to people, you know, everything is the vessel. It does what it's supposed to do. You know, you're attracted to whoever you're attracted to. But the bottom line is in terms of like what you consider beautiful, you do not like your body. You don't feel comfortable in it. You don't like it. You don't like it. You don't like it. It is a beautiful body, but you're kind of at odds with it. And so when it comes to the lifetimes that you have spent as very interesting, interdimensional, like magical powers, beautiful influence, such an incredible spirit guide, the time that you have spent on this earth has been mainly in the energy of like, I'm seeing an enormous sequoia tree. And this is like, your soul was very happy in that kind of a relationship with a body. So it was like kind of first had an experience as a tree and was like, this isn't that bad because I'm connected to sustenance and the earth and my, and you felt yourself as being a part of and included in and networked and having a vantage point, and there was no pressure. There's like really very comfortable. You might hug a tree and be like, oh, look at you, like mom, you know what I mean? There's really something very beautiful in that. So nature is a big deal. So missing home is sort of just like accepting, you know, like the first step here in terms of processing is like, there is grieving that you've been carrying with you in the way of, I miss my family for so long that when you I'm seeing a scenario here in terms of your Akashic Records. I'm seeing very specifically that you have had to cut family off, or not cut them off, but there's this interesting thing happening where you figured out who they were, and then that you knew that they were never going to be what you needed them to be. And so the relationships that you have with them now are either like you don't have a relationship, or you phone in the relationship and they phone in the relationship, and it's just sad that way. And so, you know, there's real heartbreak around family and missing your family has extended to again, like missing your family, even though they were never really close. Like there's something really painful there. And this desperate need for another person to cure the homesickness that's not going to be cured with another person, and then feeling really disappointed about what love isn't, because it has always just fallen short of curing this, and there's a reason. Doesn't mean you should have stayed in those crappy relationships. You shouldn't have, but ultimately that homesickness is not going to be cured by a person, and missing your family is something that you can kind of begin to fix. They want to connect with you, absolutely 100%. Their soul recognizes the signature of your soul. There's a communion that can be had there, and you're very much being told to begin to do this in meditation. You're really good in the astral plane, and your effort. This is kind of interesting. You probably remember almost none of your dreams because you so quickly shapeshift into these forms that you're much more comfortable in. I'm seeing a Pegasus, like very specifically, as being like, oh, I feel amazing. Oh, good, this is me. I'm back. You know, like that's sort of like what it's almost like you take these breaks, you know, while you're sleeping to experience yourself in the way that feels like yourself. There's some sadness around this life as a tree. There's something that happened here that actually inspired you to come back with a human consciousness. I think it was basically this idea that like, you have such this connection, and I'm going to sneeze. So there's whenever I sneeze, we're in this territory of like, your connection to nature has been something you might be very passionate about trying to get people. There's this, like, I'm seeing somebody who's like watching the people across the street cut their tree down and being like, you know, like, this is what I came here to sort of educate the world. Like, you shouldn't do that. That's not right. Like, don't, this is like, you have this looking at the earth and how it's being treated, and like wanting to come back with a consciousness where you had some agency on the ground level in terms of what it meant to have some, like, influence to try and save the earth, because you have a lot of love for the earth. A lot of love for the earth, not so much love for humans. But coming in as a human is like your way of sort of mitigating this. And so you really don't like the experience of being human. And again, what it means for you to, I love how, like, I didn't even get into this. Let's like see. Yeah. So this 12th house of, hidden things is that you can connect to your soul family, and that's going to be very healing for you to do. That's one way to start purging and processing. We can do a starseed reading at some point, maybe, to try and begin to help you with that. You are much more comfortable being a magical creature, you know, in Pisces here, spirituality, psychic, like, this is the stuff that you're only interested in this, and that's okay. You're a mystical creature. You're magical. I think you were a Pegasus for a while, because that's what I keep on seeing. And then I'm being shown that because if there's not a different representation that I would understand, like, that's how they come through. So like, knowing that, like, there's a reason why you feel disembodied in your body, understanding that your perspective is you've got the wisdom of trees. You probably inherited a lot of druid through your family line. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Love life, your feelings, attitude about the past, and use your intuition here in Cancer. So when we think about homesickness and we think about what it is for you to begin to heal your past lives, yeah, this is a very interesting thing here. I want to get a couple more cards, actually, because what I'm seeing here with your love life is, first of all, we have to heal the fact that, like, relationships have been disappointing, because they have been disappointing. You know, the family thing has left you, like, very, very vulnerable to narcissists, and especially, so that's, you know, so that's why relationships have been disappointing. But in addition to that, no relationship's actually going to feel like home. And so one of the first things that you can do to start to, like, let go is to, like, release this idea that if you don't find that person, and you will, there's something here, you know, to release this idea that that a person is supposed to bring you home. This connection, spiritual connection with your soul family, is going to give you healing related to feeling like that so that the homesickness can abate. You can contact them. Knowing that, you know, humans aren't your favorite, and so you have an especially hard time understanding them. Like, this is really starseeds everywhere, but in you very particularly have this feeling like the world isn't safe. It's a terrible place. Like, no one's any good, and like, what a horrible, gross, like, pick me up. I don't like camp. I don't want to be here. This is what the part of you that's like, I rescind my offer. I nope, no thank you. So making peace for that for you is almost knowing that, like, you know, people are not the world. They're not the universe. They don't make up the full story. They're a very small fragment of a much bigger thing. And you can begin to sort of engage with the idea of wonder and awe and looking at things from a brighter perspective, knowing that this is not all that there is. You already know that, but there's this bitterness that you can release related to really knowing it. You know, I see this grief, and so Spirit is saying, you know, allowing yourself to grieve for the life experience that you, like the life experience that you have had, you have not wanted to have. I almost see a young person saying, like, I didn't choose to be born, like, really angry. And so making peace with this is you chose to be born. There are a great many beauties for you to discover in relationship to humans. That's what this love life and your feelings and attitude about the past and intuition and Cancer, you know, part of the life lesson of this life is developing, you know, a sense of what it is that is valuable about human beings and humanity, what it is that is beautiful, what is worth loving in terms of humanity. So like one of the U-turns that you can make right now is to know that part of your life mission is not to spend the entire time trying to call home and get picked up from camp. Part of your life mission is to actually get the lesson, learn what's lovable about people, what is redeemable about humanity. You're here to find it. You're here to experience it, and you're here to experience it in relationship, which is super hard for you because you're somebody who isolates like crazy. Because this is terrifying and upsetting. You miss home. I don't understand people, and just like, I'm here to have a mission. I don't feel like I have any power. Like, everything's disappointing. We have healing coming in relationship. We got to get you, like, we got to get you unstuck from the focus of, I just want to go home, I just want to go home, I just want to go home, I just want to go home. Because this is like an undercurrent that is like, and it's really the refrigerator buzz, like, that is always going. And so, in the background. So with transportation, self-confidence to create, taking a chance on, resulting from the impressiveness of, you know, I want you to begin to think about the fact that like part of your goal is to discover yourself in relationship to others, to allow yourself to really have this experience, this human experience all the way, to get into your body. This train is a vessel. It's symbolizing your body. Getting into your body is going to be an experience of this like Leo energy. You are like, and you're here to have this experience of like loving the body, having like a proud sort of like relationship to it, what you can do like in a vessel, and how you're able to interact from that vantage point, and actually like have this embodied experience, because you're going to have a Leo experience from it if you allow for that to happen. You're so interesting and beautiful that once you're finally feel like you can start letting people in, and they don't need to make you feel at home, because this is going to be the challenge for you. And I want to get some more cards on this because it is a challenge for you. It's kind of like a heinous challenge for you. So let me pull a couple of these. I'm going to get some advice because we want to see how you can process it and purge it. Our first thing is be aware of what it is. Yeah, you're supposed to have compassion, universal love, universal compassion. You know, this is coming in. Cancer is showing up here, and it's also showing up here with your love life. Your home and your love life are very intertwined, and that might be very difficult for you at this moment to hear because it doesn't feel like there's a good situation with that. You're meant to feel at home with yourself. I'm seeing the crab. You like, and again, I'm being shown vessel. Like, you're meant to feel at home in your body, at home with yourself, and at home with being human. There's this activation like in this process. So I'm gonna like look at what you're meant to learn so that you can really think about the fact that like it's going to be easier for you once you start to create this link in meditation to your soul family, because once that horrible homesickness goes away, you can begin to apply this universal compassion from your vantage point as this incredible, unique creature, and as from your vantage point of what it was to be such a, you know, to be a tree is to have a relationship with nature that is a relationship with nature. You very much felt at home with Gaia, and so part of what it is going to be for you to be effective on the ground level is taking this perspective of the tree, taking this perspective of the creature, standing in your uniqueness, having universal compassion for those who don't understand you and don't want to understand you because you're foreign to them. Having compassion, you know, in a way that is quite remarkable, because the whole point of this experience, and I can't stress this enough, because like as I talk to you, your soul keeps on screaming, like, I'm ready for my mom to pick me up. I don't want to participate. I'm not having a good time at camp. Like, I just can't stop hearing your soul with this. And I understand why this life feels this way and why you're carrying this with you. The homesickness you can address by really starting to like explore your soul family, calling them to show themselves to you, to interact with you. You're spiritual. This isn't going to be something that you've already begun interacting with spirits. So this is just like taking that next step so that you can, this is going to be really healing for you. Stepping into the body is fertility. This is important. Compassion again, double compassion here, and realization. Soul time. So when we look at your soul and your soul's mission right now, and I always read the blurbs, the frequency of soul time asks us to allow the possibility of a new reality to emerge, one that embraces the concept that while the corporal body is mortal, the soul is timeless, limitless, and infinite. Your soul having a human experience. I know you don't like the human experience. I get that you don't like the human body even. You're here to create with it. It's a tool. And so when we are able to realize that, like, this isn't something like, again, I hear a teenager like, I didn't ask to be born. Yes, you did. You did. You're a little bit unprepared for this experience because it's testing you and it's pushing for a level of soul expansion that you've never had to contend with before. And it's really, really overwhelming. But in terms of what you're supposed to create with the alchemy of who you are, where you came from, and what it means to go into a relationship with that, boots on the ground, requires that you have compassion. You are different. Universal compassion. You have a vantage point that nobody else has. You have giftedness that nobody else has. You're going to be judging people really harshly if they're judged against you. If you're judging people against the benchmark of you, people are going to fall short. I guarantee it. You're really advanced, really unique, interdimensional being of like endless depth and sight and wisdom. And the people that you are interacting with are falling short. They're failing you. I just heard someone say, your father failed you. Your mother failed you. They're failing you. Have compassion. Because they failed you. But the way that you experience it is total. And you're being told to be a little more, to begin to open your heart a lot more than you have ever before, really. Because it hasn't felt safe because humans. But part of this experience is to be in relationship with, and that means forgiveness, and that means compassion, and that means understanding, and the realization that you want to leave this life with is that humanity is worth saving. It's important for you to leave this life with that realization. Remember, there's no time. When you're coming in here to get and understand, you're bringing with you for a purpose. This information that you're gleaning here and you're learning here has a point. So you can leave this life and vote no on humanity, but I would beg you to consider that maybe your position is a little bit biased and you can have a better time of what it means to be human and to be in this body and to have a perspective that isn't, like, your perspective tends to be really broad systems, patterns, like very much so. Because what you're meant to create with the alchemy of you in this world with people is going to give you an experience of what it means to be human that will allow you to fall in love with yourself, the body that you're in, the person that you're in, the incarnation that you are is worthy of love. The incarnation that you currently are is worthy of love. Please don't be at war with yourself. To process and purge the agony of homesickness that you're carrying with you is to connect with home. Know that you're not at home. Stop condemning this foreign land for being foreign. That's really difficult. There's a lot to find fault with. And come into the realization that your soul is designed in this lifetime to operate in a body that shines, is beautiful, effervescent, magnetic, big, loud, takes up space. And you're like, how can that be? Part of what it is going to be to get comfortable with the body is because your power and your invincibility and your essence as an infinite interdimensional creature doesn't like being confined because it feels powerless. But it's not powerless. You can take all of that power, put it in the body, and then it emanates out from the body. And that's what it means to be the sunshine in the middle of an otherwise dark place. And that's your experience of interacting with humanity. And it might be sort of alienating, but processing it and purging it is making peace with that. The realization of who you are, what you came here to do, and how you can reorient your perspective and begin to try and heal from the disappointments, and heal from the trauma of actually being here in this way. So let me take a look and see if there's anything else. I'm going to go ahead and pull you a summation card. If you've had readings with me, you know what that is. The card kind of, it doesn't really, it summarizes, sure, but it's like advice on the theme of, is kind of how it ends up summarizing. Or it's very specifically summarizing. So we'll see what ends up coming out. But I'm going to close with a summation card. Reading from this deck. So let's just grab a summation card. This is a little bit of a hard pill to swallow because it's kind of like this is the perpetual unsatisfaction. Like there's like, oh, you mean there's no escaping this? No, there absolutely is escaping it, 100%. The powerhouse that you can be when you're able to sort of make peace with who you are right now in this incarnation and what it means to be in that body. You're going to have some fun with that body. You haven't had fun with the body yet. You're about to have some real fun with this body, and what you're able to create from it. So our summation card is about this threshold and kind of where you are right now. Healing this is largely connecting with your soul family and your soul tribe. You do this through meditation. Prayer is fine. At the threshold you stand. Before you lies a way of being that is beyond fear. It is a sacred passing through a karmic veil into a new life of empowerment, peace, and unconditional love. You are coming home to love. And I think that's your lesson here. How can you purge and process? Is to know that love isn't in a place. It's not. Love is not a place. Love is all around you. And connecting with that love is your mission in this lifetime. And it's not contingent on being a certain way, being a certain creature, or being a certain place. You're here to develop a relationship with love where you find it, even in the darkest of places, that love is all around you. This is a really big deal for you to take your commitment and emotional investment out of, I don't want to be here anymore. And that's not talking about suicide. That's like an undercurrent. And to move all of this energy and attention into, I do want to be here. I'm going to step into my power. I'm going to bring a level of compassion and forgiveness that allows me to be in this universal love and unconditional love energy. And as you do that, you're going to come home to love, and that homesickness will be abated by that knowledge, and that wisdom that you move into the future with is that love is all around you. And if you just allow it to be true, you'll begin to really experience life that way. So pile number 2, that is your reading. I hope that that was helpful. And yeah, I'll see you again soon. Okay, pile number 3, let's see what we get. It's going to be interesting. Pile number 2 was like a zip. It was like very straightforward. Pile number 1 went on and on and on. So we're going to see with you what we're going to get in terms of, this is about how can we get you back to joy? Like, how can we even remind you of what it is? Like, there's really something here. I'm actually going to pull one of these. There's really something here about feeling so disconnected from sources of life-giving energy, and like the desert is dry kind of a feeling, and feeling this, there's this theme around rejection here that's very painful. You want to, like, like this, you want to be held. And I think part of what we're looking at in terms of the joy being sucked out of life is I'm really seeing like the baby that has been forced to cry it out when it really needs to be picked up. Conception, that's interesting. So this is something that actually, you know, Spirit is saying like the coherence, yeah, the frequency of supports. So this is really interesting with coherence card. Realization, we're back to that. So This is going to be a little bit of a revelation, and I love revelations. You know, something that I like to see happen, because it's the kind of change that once we see it, we can't unsee it, and we don't have to work forever. So what I'm experiencing here for you is that you've probably never deeply connected with joy. You're goofy. You have a great sense of humor. You know, let me move this stuff over a little bit, see if I can get more light. I have to get really practiced at looking at the viewfinder, so that's not a mess. But your guides are basically saying that, like, it's not so much reconnecting with joy, it's connecting with joy in the first place. Because I'm being brought back to that kid that's being forced to cry it out when they really just need to be held. And so we're going to look at this incoherence around what it even means to feel joy. Because it's going to take a realization. It's not going to be immediately obvious for you, because again, we're going to look at some of like what this is like a rejection wound that, again, it's something you're carrying from a past life, and it's got you retreating pretty hard. So let's take a look at what these lives were. It's interesting, again, like the decks that I'll use, it's all intuitive. I may or may not use all of them. I noticed with pile number 2 that, like, that was just one of these messages that there was no, there wasn't too much nuance. It was pretty straightforward. So let's see what's going on here. We've got vows. Let's see what we have here in terms of past lives. We'll look at the astrology, and then I'll get tarot cards if it is required. Okay, that sucks. Now I get it. Alrighty. You're carrying some heavy stuff from a past life, actually. That is probably why I've like this lead blanket. And it's not even like a heavy energy that's stagnant. It's a heavy energy that almost has like a hysterical quality. Again, baby that needs to be picked up, that is being left to cry it out. This was an untimely series of deaths. That's interesting. Okay. So not really having much of a concept of joy, and you need joy. You need to know how to have fun. It's a crucial pressure release valve. Your soul is in need of this replenishment. So we're gonna look at this very closely. And I'm gonna get a bunch of cards, actually, because it's not so straightforward. You've got so many layers here. You've got a couple of lives in a row with us where you've kind of gone over the same thing over and over again. And so there's something here to, like, really putting in the time right now to release you from this. Because you've been at this for a while, and we want you to have a much better experience. The Sun card. We need the sun to come out for you, you know, and that's really, this delight card really speaks to me of the warmth and the sun coming up, and you having that experience of joy, you know, delighting in life. Can you imagine? You don't have any kind of a relationship to, there's no coherence around what it would mean to experience this kind of joy, and to experience this level of freedom. So, because you're very much bound up. So bringing the sun, letting the sun come up for you is a really, really big deal. It's like not a wonder to me that you've always been, it's funny, you're timid secretly. Like, I've never seen somebody who is so gregarious, but like really secretly timid. And the only thing that I can kind of like make sense of this is when I look, you know, when I look towards your childhood, when you were very little, you probably were like afraid to go in the store and pick up gum by yourself. Like, that's a weird example, but I'm being shown a little kid and their mom being like, go get the milk, and you being like, I'm embarrassed, and you're only like 6 or 7 or 8, like this embarrassment, this profound embarrassment, and this shame, and this like this fear, and anxiety around just taking up space in the world. So that's been with you for a really long time. And so we have a past life influence here in terms of this vow, like, you know, not having any experience of joy or delight or pleasure even. And you're like one of the brightest, happiest people. To not be able to access pleasure, delight, or joy is weird, because you're goofy and funny and fun, right? And so this is kind of like the darkness within that like no one really knows is there, is really, really profound. And so when we think about like, well, why has the experience of fun and delight and joy been stripped from you? It has to do with, this is one of these nasty karmic things, with vows and Mars together. And the biblical card, here's where we have some bad karma. And this is not like, there's nothing, this is some bad karma. We're talking about it because it's for you to process and purge. And there's no condemnation, right? But you definitely did have a life. And this is like, you had one life where you racked up 20 lives worth of bad karma, and you're working that stuff out right now. And so this vows, this was you taking on Christianity at a time where it meant that you were a crusader. And so you truly did believe that you were saving the world from hell. And honestly, we're talking about you. And that wasn't the agenda of everybody who was around you in that life. And you know it. And know it now and with a keenness. But you were very much wrapped up with and taken over by and co-opted by this experience of revolution in a really dark sense, where, you know, Christianity was sort of a revolution for you personally, because it reconnected you. You were always someone who was very connected to the divine, and then you felt this disconnection and this scattered energy around the deities that you had been working with, and you needed something firmer. And so Christianity and monotheism like did come in and offer you something that inspired you and made you think that what works for you is going to work for everyone. Let's take over the world. This is the problem. So why the destruction, you know, first of all, taking on that dogma the way that you did was to cut out all pleasure from your life. Early dogmatic 15th century Christianity, like this is gnarly, nasty, like no sex, no smiling, no dancing, you know, like all of that, like that, you've retained this like tight amount of control over the part of you that like no, like losing yourself in the abandon of, like none of that for you. And it has a lot to do with it's almost like, you know, sometimes like the punishment, and not sometimes, but the Akashic Records I think is almost all the time, where the punishment and the crime are like the same, like where the crime and the punishment are like really intertwined. The punishment, and it's not really punishment so much as it's like wake up. You know, any tendency that you may have had and probably had in life around conquering your way or the highway, this cause or like I hate you, right? Anything like that has that sort of like vibe and that sort of Christian-y, you believe as I believe or else you are wrong. Your life was going to be negatively impacted by this experience because of the harm that was done in your zeal that the ends justify the means. So any area in your life where you have had zeal for ends that justify the means, we're going to destroy you, right? And that has happened to a certain degree. So you don't ends justify the means anymore. You have a better sense of nuance. And so you have freed yourself from that like aspect of this karmic trap. But the problem is that like the part of you that had like sworn off tasty food, you know, sworn off sex, sworn off anything that was a diversion from, you know, the Christianity that at the time you were espousing. You cut off this was a numb state with moments of Christian ecstaticism, and it's a type of evil technology that's used to this day. And so you're so disconnected from delight and joy and pleasure as a result of this. And we're going to look at what it means to heal that, because you've spent lifetime after lifetime after lifetime trying to battle with this, and you've been sucked into Christianity, like really heavy dogmatic. Like this is why I said this has been something you try and been working out lives after, like lessons, and like the number of lives that you've been at this, trying to either find joy and delight and like feeling like that it just wasn't something for you and that, you know, you were never going to have it. And like this is like morbid, like an undercurrent of like the most morbid, dark void sadness, and you've been trying to overcome this for a really, really long time. And so there have been lives that you have been spent trying to make this true, lives where your willpower has been given over to dogma again, lives where you were meant to break out, you had to break out. This was a bad situation. This is where you racked up all your negative karma, so you kind of had to face it in every life. Horrible dogma that's imposed upon your soul and is restricting and takes you away from your gods. Again, this is karma. This is what you did to others. Ends justify the means type of thinking, and how can you break out of it? And it's been like very difficult for you to break out of that, because breaking these vows, very specifically, you know, sitting alone in your quote unquote prayer closet and saying, I release and break all vows I made during any sort of Christian or Catholic or monotheistic manifest destiny, like anything like that. The Crusades, I release and I break and I renounce all of those vows, oaths, and promises made knowingly or unknowingly. Do that for yourself. Spend some time doing that. That's part of what it is to process and purge this. Also, you've got a really toxic relationship with authority, and there's no question as to why. It's a toxic, this is some shadow work, you know, a toxic relationship with holding authority because of what it did and what you experienced when you held authority. So holding power, you never want to hold power, but you need to hold power. It's an important part of your life experience. So healing that relationship with you and your own power, healing your relationship with dogma, healing your relationship with duality, the lessons and blessings, and the second house. Yeah, like that you have, like this with the, here, I'll try to make it make sense. I'm actually going to get some cards because I'm going to let this go a little long, because you've done so many lives with this. We need to fix it. You're like closer than you've ever been before, and you're halfway to the finish line with some of this stuff, but that darkness is still there, because of this incoherence at a soul level, and this dissonance and this disconnect from your source. That's a really big deal. That's going to make you have a hunger that, so let's take a look at that, because what did this life do? Vows to, I hate to say it, a false god. Any god that's like, my way or the highway, everyone else is wrong, I am the only thing to worship, and I am jealous, is going to disconnect you from your own source, your own God, your own sense of, your own like broader infinite life. So you are reconnecting, and reconnecting for you is a little bit of a process. It's you might have been feeling in the last couple of weeks like your guides have abandoned you and you're just miserable. And what I'm seeing here is like this reckoning around finally releasing any attachments that you have to this like conquering, like fundamentalist kind of anything, and reckoning with the damage that has been done to your soul, forcing like this adherence to things that did not connect you to life, forcing this adherence to things that did not coherence, adherence, like forcing this adherence that's sticking, to things that were giving you no nourishment. It's almost like the monk. Again, this was a life of like whipping yourself. You know, that's the truth. And so you have a relationship to pain that is just way too much pain tolerance. You don't enjoy it, but you have such a tolerance to pain that you walk around in a state of deprivation, disconnected, and relying very heavily on your external guides, because that internal compass is not coherent yet. It's muddled. Every time you get close to connecting to your highest self and the God that created you and the God of your ancestors, every time you get close to that, fear, freakiness, pain, I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like it's not registering as like you have a hunger to connect to your God, you have a hunger to connect to your spirituality. That's there. There have been many, many, many lives where you have broken yourself into 1,000 different pieces trying to make Christianity work for you because of everything that happened here, and your tolerance for pain, trying to force it, and the adherence to it. Again, this has been a really bad series of lives, and breaking out is that like lesson and that freeing thing that you're doing right now. It's hard. You're going to have to willpower yourself out of this, because your knee-jerk reaction is to have a 15th century Christian response to everything at a soul level. I know that sounds really, really extreme, but this is kind of what we're working out here. You know, don't be condemning yourself like this person like had their, like, I don't want you to feel bad. You know, I want you to understand that this is a process of undoing the ways in which you were done dirty and bound. It's not something that you want to take on. It's like, oh my God, I was that person. We're bringing clarity here because there was a reason why you're that person, and there's a reason why you're working your way out of this position as well. Why you're putting in the work, and you're putting in the work, and it's really, really beautiful. So with the Temperance card on the bottom of the deck, there's angelic assistance, and this is you. You know, you have to find a way in which you are simultaneously an angel and a demon, and allowing that to be the case that it is. It's simultaneously the divine and an animal. You know, all of these voices that are like screaming, like evil, you know, the devil, like, you know, this is a very heavy influence. You already know that it's bullshit. This is you knowing that those are all bullshit voices. But the consequences that you're facing as you interact with what it is that is your source of life, what it is that is that holy of holies, and what it is that is going to allow you to connect with life itself, with joy, with delight, release you from the heaviness of all of these bindings. And you're doing it. You're so close. This has been lifetimes trying to make this work out. You're really, really close. Part of what it is going to be is to know that these voices are shapeshifters. And so even if you get rid of the dogma, you're still going to find ways in which, like, you're going to look at the voices in your head that condemn you against pleasure and against joy and against putting yourself out there, against adventure, you know, everything that wants to clamp down on you and put you into like the most controlled spot. Any part of you that feels like you need to be taken care of is really a part of you that feels like it needs to be controlled. And to be able to, and to do something with that, you know, that's a thing. Any dependence that you've been struggling with, like, I need someone to take care of me, like, I'm not able to take care of myself. I have all of these reasons that are valid, that I need help, and I need someone with me. I can't do this. I can't do anything on my own. A lot of that, your guys are saying, like, you might have some trouble with executive functioning, fine, whatever. That's different. ADHD, I'm reading your Akashic Records. We all have something, you know what I mean? And so when we look at this, every part of you that is hyper controlled against pleasure, and there's a lot of you part of you that is like hyper controlled against pleasure, hyper controlled against chaos, hyper controlled against leaps of faith. This is your time to break out from that. And this is what it means to, like, the faith in yourself, trust in yourself, allowing yourself to be fully empowered. These are all things that you're processing, that this lifetime, there's clarity around the fact that this lifetime, you know, and its beliefs, those voices, again, like, they're shapeshifters. So it's not going to come at you with Christian purity culture. It's going to come at you from a different angle and be the same message. And you're going to have to watch for that, because this is, again, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of you not being willing to step out of the conditioning that happened in this lifetime. Because the conditioning that happened in this lifetime, the grooves are really, really deep, because this is the one lifetime, and you've got like one lifetime of racking up horrible karma, and everything else you're a saint. And you might feel very punished. But this is where you're actually kind of punishing yourself. This is where these voices are punishing you. And this is where not being able to sort of step into who you are, what you're connected to in the way of source energy, and that power and the truth in that power about what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what it is to have actually experience pleasure. This is you really keeping, like, where you can see it, you can put your toe out there, but getting all the way there, just, it's like, is that even real? You know? And so this is why, you know, with lessons and blessings, and the second house, you have been at this patiently, trying to get these lessons, and Spirit has given you a lot of what seem like curses, but are actually blessings to try and break you out of the prison that was caused by that experience, of giving all of your power, disconnecting from source, and trying to impose that on others. And so it's like really important for you to begin to just fully forgive yourself. Kind of understand that like product of your times doesn't even begin to explain it. We would have to do a much deeper reading on what it was to be you at that time, but you're gonna have to forgive yourself anyway, just kind of knowing that like if you were born then, it kind of makes sense. Everything was horrible. You're basically born in a coffin at that point. So with what it means to break out of this and to move into a new arena of self, there's some work here around authority and around authority figures, you know, with Uranus and authority figures. You know, this is like an unusual thing for you to get around, because you have to look at it from a unique angle. The work that you have to do in terms of untangling all of the control that has been placed over your life because of vows that were taken in the 1500s that don't make any sense anymore. It's like an operating system that runs in the background, and when you try to upload and new things, it won't. and so you don't have these new experiences that allow you to have that greater expansion. This is like a big chunk of karma for you to really see yourself in this new way is gonna take a little bit of work. It's gonna take a lot of work, because this is feeling very Eight of Swords to me. You've always had bad relationships with authority figures. Like you're afraid of the world because of what the world has shown you as a result of your environment with a really gnarly deity. And so you need to put on a different pair of glasses. And this is going to be really, really difficult. You need to do the energy work. I release myself from any vows, any promises, any oaths, all of that stuff. Do that very intentionally. Understand that a lot of the control and the afraid of life and the timid and the binding and you're not allowed to take up space and pleasure is off limits. That's something that you're carrying with you from another life, that to process it and to purge it means to, first of all, do a little investigating, do that shadow work around really paying attention to the thought forms I'm hearing and the thoughts in your mind around the voices may no longer be wearing a Christian robe, but they're definitely still screaming at you in one way or another. And to free yourself from fear-based thinking, fear-based control is the work that needs to be done here. Fear-based is all you need to know in the way of like, how do you method your way out? Like what is the method out of this is to know that it's fear-based. And so everything that is opposite fear-based is what you kind of need to bring in. And it's a little bit of work there's an inner authority that has so much control over you that you think it's you. It's really an old conditioning, intense conditioning from another life. So the work that you have to do to undo it is to confront the authority of the fear within you. And right now the fear is this omnipotent, all-powerful God, isn't it? In some ways. That's why it has like an Eight of Swords kind of feeling. I don't know how to break out of this. I can't do it by myself. I need help. Stepping into your power is going to be one of the hardest things you ever do, but this is what it means to sort of process and purge the powerlessness, the fear of life, the fear of pleasure. It's all fear, 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 fear. So confronting authority figures for you is about confronting the fear within you and the voices that they carry. And that means a little bit of hypervigilance with your thoughts, but it also means you have to do some grieving over all the losses related to like never celebrating. You've been really crying over this thing with nobody celebrates you, like where's your parties, like, you know what I mean? And Spirit is basically saying you took a vow against it. And even if you've done sort of like, I release all vows and said it, like if the wasn't behind it, it wasn't gonna magically like do the job, you know? So there's this like, I would really actually do this thing with your actual creator, not this false God that calls itself the creator, but with your actual creator, where you do have this like, I repent from this experience in this life. I couldn't have possibly understood what I was doing. Please reconnect with me because I desire to reconnect with you. That's the Sun card here. We're talking about the sun coming up in your life. That's going to be the first thing that you need to do, is reconnect with your creator. Creator, I want to connect with you. Your creator has always been with you. Done. Instantaneously. I release all vows, promises. I'm sorry that I made them. Like, help me do this. Put your power behind it. Source. Release all of that binding. And then it's just about getting rid of the conditioning. And that's where the work comes in. That's confronting your fears. Because where we have this believe in yourself card, the unrequited love and the awareness, many thoughts about the Mercury here, you know, and the Nine of Wands, like what you're carrying in the thought space about your worth is that you're not worth anything. What you're carrying in the thought space about like deserving love is a feeling that you don't deserve love. You do deserve love. You've been a saint in every single life except one. And this one just tripped you up. It took your qualities and your propensity towards being a saint. It's interesting. This life took all of those spiritual propensities for the saint that you were in every other life, high priestess in every other life, took all of that. And I think we're going to have you forgiving yourself right now, if we can do it. If you can understand that you have always been a high priestess, you've always been a high priest, you've always had a ton of magic, you've always had a beautiful and incredible and powerful connection to source, and you were born at a time where the whole world was disconnected, where you were taught to fear your own power, you were taught to fear pleasure, you were taught to think that your impulses were animal and wrong and original sin. And so you had this propensity for magic and this ability to tap into the spiritual realms, and you tapped into the energy that was given to you in the form of a false god, and that manipulated you into this position of seeing things and experiencing things and being the puppet of things that would stay with you for so many lifetimes, in the form of you feeling like you don't belong in a world where this can happen, where this can be made of you, where you can have an experience of this. Like, this is forgive yourself, because the part of your brain that is constantly like a helicopter looking for a landing pad that it can't find is the part of you that doesn't believe that you're worth love, is a part of you that is trying to always convince yourself and others of your worthiness, is trying always to be the best person in the whole wide world, never do anything wrong, always be perfect, always be loving, never screw up, never ever hurt anyone, you know, never take up too much space, never be too loud, you know, all of this, lots for you to process and purge in the way of your self-worth as being as bad as it is, because you feel like you're rejected by God. You weren't rejected by God. You were swindled into something, and you've done your time. You know, it's kind of where we are with this in terms of like, you are ready to take this step out into the world, reconnect with source. We've got a problem here. You need this. You need to have some coherence around where your joy, your delight, and your happiness and your lifeness, like being alive. You have some coherence about where that comes from, and it's the part of the creator that you hold as life. So connecting to that creator is going to help you so much in your healing journey and combat some of this fear, because this fear holds you hostage in the form of you're not worth anything, no one's ever going to love you, and all of the stories about that are in the way of you holding this judgment over yourself, you know, from this other life. And so, you know, forgiving yourself, reconnecting with your source, you do need to be held. You need to go into, it's like, I don't know if you've ever sort of done the meditation where you pick up your inner child. You need to be picked up by your higher self. This crying and crying and crying and the need to be picked up, this is you crying for your higher self, and this is this agony. And so we're going to just like do a little healing right now. Like, I can just feel this moment as being the right moment for this, and I want to bring you into yourself. I want you to take some really big deep breaths in with me right now, and I like, just feel yourself breathing and be conscious of your breath. I want you to place your hand on your heart, and I want you to feel the beating of your heart. And I just want you to sort of be there for a minute, taking these deep breaths and feeling the beating of your heart. And I want you to keep your eyes closed. And I want you to move into that space of feeling that you know is that undercurrent of crying, and you know you need to be picked up. And I want you to feel comfortable and loved here and held here in this space. This isn't an uncomfortable space. We're gonna reconnect you. So being in this space of I need my mother, I need my higher self, that disconnect, that void. I want you to picture your higher self, and we're going to actually like call your higher self in for the purpose of this. I'm calling your higher self in. You're going to feel a presence in the room. It's going to be subtle because it's you, but bigger. I want you to connect and say, I want to connect with you. I miss you. I need you. Please pick me up. And now I want you to feel the presence with its arms around you. Feel this presence holding you. Feel what it is to be held. Recognize that at the end of all of your crying, you recognize this space as the place where you always are held. Know that your higher self has never left you. Your higher self has watched every minute of every day and has sent you so much wisdom and love from a place where it was just, your higher self was just waiting for you to recognize that it was there. It says, I never left you. I never left you crying. You just didn't know. Like, I'm being shown a baby who, when it doesn't feel good and it feels sick and it doesn't know why it can't feel better, and it feels like the mother isn't tending to it. But your guide is saying, I've been holding you. You just didn't know I was here, and you were screaming for me not knowing I was here. And I understand why you were screaming for me knowing not I wasn't here, but I'm here and I'm holding you. And so that's the beginning. And we're going to just let you be in that space with your higher self and make time to get in that space with your higher self. It's important for you to go back there on a regular basis and just like feel this held. Feel yourself being held right now. I'm going to get a couple more cards and then, actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually going to grab from this deck over here. I'm going to get this card. I've been using these as kind of summation cards with each reading. Those of you who have had readings with me know about the summation card, unless it's a question specific, but you know, all the revelatories we usually do a summation card. So it sort of vaguely summarizes, but it either vaguely summarizes or gives you like the last piece of information. These cards are really small, so summarize is a little hard, but they should kind of come close. So let's take a look and see what Spirit wants to say to you directly. This is actually going to be a message very much from your higher self in this space where you're being held. Okay. So, being in this space of being held by your higher self wants to give you this message. The Yin Empress brings peace, prosperity, and success to her beloved devotees. Your soul purpose includes healing and empowerment of the divine feminine, the Yin Empress herself. You gain power, assistance, and untold blessings in following your soul purpose. You are lifted and supported in your sacred work now. Be at peace. You shall thrive. So this is a really important moment, and I think we can kind of like celebrate a little bit. It's going to get easier. The sun is coming up. It's been a lot of life in the dark. It's been a lot of crying in the void. This reconnection with your higher self is going to help process and purge all of that alienation that you have had to suffer with. And that's kind of half the battle. Your higher self is also going to empower you to confront these fears. And you're going to see how strong you are. And you didn't even realize you were that strong. And that feeling of, I need help, you're going to feel like you don't need help because you're going to feel the presence of your higher self with you. And the most important thing that you can do right now to process and release is to change this messaging, you know, this messaging about not being lovable. You are lovable. And so I'm going to actually pull us 3 more cards because, you know, you are lovable. Yeah, I want you to sort of like bring that all the way in. You're forgiven. It's your job to forgive yourself. You know what I mean? I don't think that you can consider yourself guilty is the thing. I think you just need to undo the conditioning that resulted from that life. And that is time for a deep dive. You know, it's time to really connect with your higher self. Yeah. Like, this is sort of delight, you know, like you reconnecting with your higher self is also reconnecting with your source of life, your source of magic, your source of contentment. And from that place is, from this deep dive and this connection within, we do see delight re-entering your life. We see joy re-entering your life, and your relationship with pleasure, with being playful. Again, there's this lightness of being that you've never even experienced yet, that like your soul is being freed from the cage that you've been carrying around. Trust them in the magic. You're gonna have a different experience as a result of letting go of the need to control anything, letting go of the need to be certain about everything. Remember, these voices are gonna sound like certainty and they're gonna sound like control. All you need to do to figure out whether or not one of these voices is the one that's screaming at you is listen for the fear. If you hear fear, if it's motivated by fear, then you know that it's what's carried over. And so, you know, being vigilant about your thoughts and everything, every time you come up against something that sounds like fear, I want you to say, source, my creator, help me with this fear. Help me disempower it. I see someone taking a bomb apart. So it's not like, you know, it's a little bit of a process, but Spirit is there for you for this process, because these thoughts that really chip away at your confidence, that like destroy your sense of a place in the world, destroy your sense of being lovable. This is going to be grieving for the life that you've had and the lives that you've had that were like, where everything just felt perpetually unfinished, uncelebrated, unhappy, no joy. And doing that grieving for the person who's sort of caught up in this mess and had these controls in place. Because again, that's like grieving for the part of yourself that had to suffer under the tyranny of this. Grieving is part of what it is to let go of this false self, this picture of the false self. And so like, as you grieve for this person who is lovable, who is worthy of celebration, as you do the work of like very intentionally breaking all vows and oaths that you have made in other lives, and as you connect with your higher self and get some rain on that desert, you're going to start to feel the growth, and it's going to feel good. So yeah, this is really where all the work is done. Let's see if there's anything else that wants to come through. It's going to get better, and you're going to feel better. It's been a pretty dark time of things, but the warmth of the sun and the nourishment of your higher self is going to produce a field of wildflowers in the way of life experience in place of what was a desert. And that's sort of where this purging leads. This is a little bit of a process. It's not an all at once, but this is where this purging leads. So I'm going to leave this here. I hope that's helpful, and I will see you again soon.